going on the road a lot, meeting with a lot of customers in this composable enterprise DXP space. What are some of the things that stick out to you based on some of these longer meetings we've had?
I think it's interesting, right? Because it just really depends on the customer, the amount of knowledge and information they have within the space. A lot of our customers are used to traditional on-prem, monolithic, all-in-one DXP. Some of them are using it purely as a CMS, others are using more of the features. Some are getting ideas and are excited for the features, but there are also a lot of them who are really, really confused. And they don't know what this composable DXP means, what it is, how it works, and more importantly, how do they get there from their current situation. For some of the smaller customers, I think the roadmap is a little bit easier because they only have the one asset that they need to migrate. But with some of our enterprise clients, they have over 100 sites. This isn't something that can happen overnight, and it's not even something that can happen in a single rebuild for a single site.
Yeah, I think the interesting piece, one thing that has been sticking out in the conversations that they've been excited about, is when you say you can do small things in the agile world, what we might call MVPs, and make meaningful change. You don't have to do everything. You can pick one section of a website to make updatable. You can choose one element of your stack and start there and kind of build a composable framework. You might find out that you are composable-ish already. Maybe you're using other systems such as Salesforce for a CRM, or I think I even heard Salesforce being used for A/B testing a little bit. So some of those things seem to resonate with these customers.
Yeah, I think the MarTech stack has been different for a lot of customers. They have a lot of options. You can integrate with other systems, which then has a knock-on effect that your upgrades are harder, right? But I think a lot of those customers are, again, it's just, I think a lot of it is teaching, learning, knowledge sharing, and then people understand that, maybe we're kind of composable already in some aspects, and we just need to keep pushing in other aspects. And just those road mapping sessions that you had mentioned really, really help people understand where are we right now and where do we get to.
Yeah, one of the pieces that has been interesting to me, even listening in these discussions, is the fact that oftentimes when you go from the on-prem all-in-one system to composable, even if it's within the same company, you hear the term rewrite a lot. And because you have to consider a rewrite, it now makes the organization more apt to potentially look at other solutions if it's going to be a rewrite anyway, right?
Yeah, and some of the enterprise systems, they may already have multiple CMSs. And at that point, we have traditionally looked at trying to go to single platforms. At that point, that rewrite, when you hear the word rewrite, then those questions are coming up. Maybe you're not looking at other systems, but you're looking at the systems that you're already using in-house.
The majority of the people working at these companies that we interface with are good, well-meaning professionals who want to find their way to the best solution. They kind of want the technology to step up at the time of choosing, but then recede to the background a little bit so they can get on with their day jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But what I also think is great is even if you can spend an hour or 2 hours with a customer at a lunch, at their place of work, in a conference room, in a very short time, you can get to an agreement on elements where you can improve very quickly. And I think that creates the in-person piece is almost necessary to get that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Remote is great because it allows us to all do the things we love without the commute times and without the loss of, gives us more family time, gives us more leisure time. And more working time, of course, but those in-person meetings are great. I think they're really, really fantastic. And it doesn't have to be particularly everything about work, right? So we talked about everything under the sun, right? From sports to family to some work-related things as well. But one of the great things is it's not just about the long-term vision; it's also about short-term pain. And then we were having some conversations around, oh, we want to do this. We figured it's going to take us this long to implement and to get this thing correct. But actually, there's interim steps in between that you can take, which will ease 80% of your pain straight away, which is much smaller. And then you can tackle that other 20%, which is going to take a long period of time. And that will make the business much happier and your users much happier. So
It really is fascinating to me the way the conversation starts. It's a little open, we're a little vulnerable, but man, by the end of it, it's like, whoa, we got 2 or 3 things here that are clear direction, that are clear directives, and it's a collaborative process. And hopefully when you come out of it, everyone feels a lot better.
yeah, definitely. And I think going into some of these sessions, some of these customers and clients, we've been working with them for several years now. It started during a lot of them started during COVID, and we hadn't met in person due to various reasons. But you go into these meetings and you feel like you really do know them, right? Yeah. Actually, finally putting a handshake to that person is felt really great.
Yeah, I mean, we're vulnerable enough to say we're not here to sell, we're here to collaborate, we're here to be a partner, and we have mutually beneficial aims across the board.
Yeah, and I think it does help build the confidence. We obviously pride ourselves in our excellence and our expertise, but I think they appreciate the fact that we will go above and beyond as a partner to work with them. We don't know everything. We're not experts in everything. We can't be, right? The fact that we work with them so closely, we get to know them so well. They appreciate the fact that we will always try our best and we will always deliver what we promise we will deliver, no matter what.
And why don't we talk about your favorite subject, Sitecore? How you've been doing it a long time. Do you remember the first project or time you came in contact with Sitecore?
Oh yeah, clearly. Yeah, that was end of 2009. I just started a new job with a very small consultancy company in London, and never worked on the CMS project before. That wasn't why I'd been hired. I'd been hired as a .NET developer essentially, and immediately was working on some custom .NET applications. But I've been working on web my entire life. I had worked on some homegrown CMSs before, so smaller scale homegrown CMSs, but never enterprise level. Yeah, we had this project for Virgin Mobile, and they were launching in Qatar. So it was interesting because it was obviously my first content management system, and it was also multilingual. It was also my first project I'd ever worked on, which was React and Neft.
What do you remember about kind of coming to grips with how to work in this newfangled thing?
So it was different, right? So we'd obviously been used to building websites that fit in a very specific way, but this was different because everything was so flexible, and it was a different way of working in terms of a component-based architecture. Everybody says that their Sitecore project is terrible because it's you're completely trying to figure things out, discover things, how things fit together. We were quite fortunate that I did have a really good team around me that I was really able to learn from. For some of them, content management systems wasn't brand new, but Sitecore was brand new for all of us.
What kept you coming back?
It was interesting because at first I did really like it, that I was more used to working on applications at that point in my time in my career. So I was working on a lot of internal applications, intranet applications, business applications, and it wasn't just public-facing websites. And that was, well, do I want to just be building websites? Once that actually understood the system more, that's when I got really, really interested, because then we're able to see the flexibility within the platform and the extensibility within the platform, that we could really go in and customize it to do the exact thing we needed to do without having to rewrite everything, right? We could just start plugging into the system. It's been built in, the system had been built to be extended.
It's funny the way you were explaining being like a application developer and then moving to a CMS and feeling almost limited from that world you had as a developer. It makes me feel a little bit like when they talk about composable and low code, no code, and are developers feeling the same way now to that, where their world had become the CMS, the DXP, and that probably felt like a full developer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people would see that. Repetition is good because it helps you learn, right? It helps, muscle memory helps you learn. It helps you get much better at the thing you're doing. But at some point, you're just like, do I just want to be building another menu component, right? Do I just want to be building another footer component? So by doing that low code, no code piece, you get to remove the mundane and you get to go back and start working on the things that are interesting and that are actually adding much more value to the business, but also to yourself as an individual to help you grow. So I can now be working on integrations with systems.
Being in this as long as you have, knowing a lot of the community members who have come up with you, you're making a lot of sense about the transition. Is this a painful transition for many who might have been in the very long projects, long upgrades, long, on-prem, and now to have this paradigm shift towards more composable, quicker, this configuration over customization kind of feeling?
Yeah, I think for a lot of I think for both in terms of the developers and the architects, we actually presented a SubCon in Budapest in 2022, and we'd gone through, what you need to know as a .NET architect, as a developer making this transition. And it's a change. It is a big change. You're having to change the way we had traditionally been viewing things, traditionally how we've been building things. But as a developer, as an architect, change is a natural part of what we have to do, right? We have to keep adapting, we have to keep learning. And this is just part of the learning cycle. As I said before, I've been working on websites and things like that, right? But these changes, this is a new change for us. It should be a really good change. Embrace a change. It's a learning experience. And you'll be pushing yourself and your own knowledge and your own experience at the same time. So composable DXP space has matured so much in the last 2 or 3 years. There is much more knowledge and advocacy around it by the industry at large, that we can all together help educate and push that envelope forward.
There's still things today when you develop within Sitecore or even configure that harken back to that first project.
Yeah, there are things that I've done and I was like, oh, why did I do it like that, and why didn't I do it this other way? But I think that's also a good sign. And looking back at things and looking at those things that you could have done better, I think is a really good sign. Definitely, it's a sign of more experience, more knowledge. If I thought I'd done something perfectly 10 years ago and I wouldn't change it right now, then probably I haven't done much and learned much more in the last 10 years. So I take it as a positive.